Hello, BookTube. I wanted to do a little review on a couple books that I finished in the last couple weeks. They're both by Hakuri Murakami, and they are Hear the Wind Sing and Pinball 1973. I found this author from watching BookTube. Somebody said that Murakami was very much like Kurt Vonnegut, and so I jumped on that because I love Vonnegut. And a lot of people don't do this, but whenever I find a new author, I start at the beginning of the books they published and kind of work my way up. And so I started with Hear the Wind Sing. Hear the Wind Sing was an odd, quick read for me because I really like plot-driven stuff. I like character development and everything like that, but the plot is the thing that keeps me turning the pages. And in Hear the Wind Sing, we are introduced to the narrator and Jay, the bartender, and the rat. And really, Hear the Wind Sing is, I think I talked about this in my wrap up, but in the beginning of the book it says these events take place over 18 days in August of 1970 or whatever. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a ticking clock plot, you know? But it wasn't. It was just, these are the events that happened during this time period. And for some reason, the author felt strong enough that this 18-day period was worth writing about. So I read it, and I didn't really see what was so special about that time period. I liked the book, but I just didn't feel like anything happened in the book. I don't know if that's how all of his books are, or just the rat books, because I guess there's 4 rat books. The title, Pinball 1973, which is the second rat book, interested me enough just because of the title that I had to read it. So I love Pinball. And so that title, was like crack to me. And so I just jumped into it. Now, when you're reading Pinball 1973, no pinball actually shows up in the book until over halfway through the book at chapter 13. I was like reading it up until then with the mindset, where's the pinball? Where's the pinball? Where's the pinball? And that probably wasn't the best way to look at the book. So once we do start talking about pinball and his quests for spaceship, which isn't really a spoiler at all, he ends up, the most touching part in the book was when he has a conversation with the pinball machine. Like, I have completely been there. I have completely felt that way. When you run into a pinball machine, even the exact one that you spent hours and hours on playing, and since so much time has gone by, even if it's just mentally, you feel like you need to catch up, like with an old friend, you know, like, oh, what have you been doing the last 5 years, or whatever. And I thought I was the only one who ever felt like that. So that was really fucking cool. But it is like just really touching. But then I kind of went over the book again, because the first time reading it, I realized I was reading it for the wrong reasons. So I went back to the beginning. The first chunk of the book is actually the best written stuff, I think, in the whole book. You have, like, the first little title is called 1969 through 1973, and he talks about how he loves hearing people tell him stories about the places where they're from, and he could just kind of sit there and close his eyes and picture everything. And he starts talking about a girl named Naoko. She's like, the place I live is so boring, I don't know why you want to know, but she tells him anyway. He ends up going to the place to try to see if it matched up with what her description of it was. Like, that whole bit and the train ride home is so touching, and it is important because a lot of what happens right there you kind of know about already from the previous book. So as a way, as a tie-in, That was really, really great. And then he talks about the twins. Now, the twins, the whole book, he's living with two identical twins that he's sleeping with. That is a cool bit, but it's also, it plays into like what the underlining theme of the book is, and I won't really get into that until I get into this next part. And all this is still before the first chapter. So then it gets into the origins of pinball. And he starts explaining how pinball started, and basically what it is, the pinball machine is an allegory for what he and the rat are doing with their life. And the weird thing is, him and the rat, like, I think they only interact maybe one time in the whole book, but the things they're going through are very similar. The pinball allegory to life is that when you're playing, and I hope I'm not spoiling any of this for anybody, because it was clear to me once I understood, but it might be because I also understand pinball, so I don't know if that is a spoiler or not. So if you're interested in reading these books, go ahead and stop now. Stop the video and go read them, and then maybe when you're finished with them, come back. But there's nothing really spoilery in here. But basically, in pinball, you play a board that never changes. Okay, you just hit the ball over and over again, and really the only thing you're hoping for is a high score, an extra ball, or a free game. And because of that, if you're good at pinball, you're basically playing a perpetual game that never changes. And I think the way this revolves from pinball to real life is that the rat is in a situation where, like, it's even hard to keep track of days, and it's like the same thing every day. And even our narrator, because he goes to work every day, is totally bored, and he comes home to the twins, reads the same book every day. I think the idea here is that even though that life is good, it's perpetual and nothing changes, and it's the same thing every day. Now, the problem here, this is going to sound so stupid, but the problem here with, if there's any pinball players or fanatics here, is that in 1973, the pinball machines were electromagnetic. You would have different pinball machines, but they would be just themed. So the theme of this pinball machine is playing cards. So instead of just having normal targets, your targets are the suits of a deck of cards or something. And then some of them are like, ooh, we painted a spaceship on the back glass, so everything's like in space. But in the early 80s, even the late 70s, they started adding some of these things. But instead of just having themed pinball machines, the pinball machines had objectives, and like they even started to have gimmicks. So like the early gimmick pinball games, like Black Hole had, and Haunted Mansion did too. They had like different levels. You would have an upper playing field and a lower playing field. Black Knight had, or still does, has two playing fields. Gorgar was the first pinball machine that had sound. So like it would talk to you and stuff. Orbiter 1 is one of my favorite pinball machines, but the gimmick there is instead of having a flat playing field, it's like bumped and ridged plexiglass, and it gives the illusion that your ball is floating or somewhere that has a different plane of gravity, like a lower gravity level. Those were just gimmicky, but the newer pinball machines, the solid state and with the dot matrix, and even the dot matrix games have changed into LED, which I'm not a huge fan of, but no one gives a shit about this. But like Monster Bash is the game that got me into pinball. The whole objective of this game is trying to get all the different universal monsters like Frankenstein, Dracula, Mummy, Wolfman, Bride of Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon. You're trying to get their old band back together so they could go play this giant gig. And it sounds stupid as shit, but it's so much fun. Creature from the Black Lagoon takes place at a drive-in theater in the 50s where they're playing Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D, and your whole objective there is to not get beat up, make out with your girlfriend, and be able to get food at the snack bar kind of thing. Attack from Mars, you're trying to stop an alien invasion from all over the world. The Machine or Bride of Pinbot, you're trying to make a woman, which is amazing. And then like Medieval Madness, you're trying to overthrow, it's either 5 or 6 different horrible kings. They're all different, but they're all equally as evil. Those games, like, yeah, you want extra balls and yeah, you want replays, but there's so many different objectives that you could go after that it's not the same as like the old electromagnetic games where you're just trying to get extra balls and replays, and that's like the whole point of the game. So if you are a pinball enthusiast, some of the themes in this book might not hit you very hard. I can't believe I just had to go through like a whole history of pinball, and that was more masturbatory than anything else probably. So back to the books. Both of these books, when they ended, they end unexpectedly. Like you think, like you go to turn the page and there's no more pages and you're like, what the fuck? But again, that's kind of like how things are in life, you know? Like things end unexpectedly. In your life, there's no plot and no warning. You know, things just happen. Both of these books are like super thoughtful, but the feeling you have after you read them, you do have like a feeling of loss, but you have just like a little speck, like a little gleam of hope, mainly loss. So these books are really good. I recommend them, but I only gave them, I think I gave both of them 3 stars, and I think I might give Pinball 73 4 stars just because that first chunk of the book is so fucking good. Like I almost want to say you could read that first chunk of the book and then put it down, like before chapter 1, and go, fuck, that was a great book. Because that's really good stuff. Let me know what you think. Are the rest of the rap books the same, or are all of his books like this? I don't know if I'm going to try to just finish the rap books, or if I'm going to go more or less in order of his publication history. Because I think after this book, I don't know if the 3rd rap book is the next book. It might be. So I might just go ahead and read that. But anyway, let me know what you think. Or if you just want to talk pinball, because I could do that for a good time too. So anyway, until next time, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day.